The sound didn't belong to this world. It pierced the afternoon heat like a blade, slicing through silence, a horrible guttural wail that sent ice crawling down 7-year-old Lily Thompson's spine from her bedroom window. She saw Max, her German shepherd, in a frenzy beneath a roiling black and gold swarm bees. Thousands of them crawled over his thick coat, hiding his body. Beneath a living storm, another cry-raw, an unearthly split the air. Max! She screamed, her small palms slamming against the glass pane. Lily, don't come out. Her grandfather, Walter, hollered from the porch, his voice cracked with terror. But the warning came too late. Lily had already burst through the screen door. The stretch of dry land between the farmhouse and the old shed where Max writhed felt like a desert with no end. Her legs moved on instinct, pumping through dust and fear behind her grandpa's voice. Grew distant, swallowed by the panic. Max's eyes found hers, wide and pleading and filled with pain. In that terrible heartbeat, everything else disappeared. She dove into the chaos. Unthinking, unafraid, her love for him louder than the roar of wingshit. The like button if you're holding your breath too, and tell us where you're watching from. In the comments, let's get back to it. Walter Thompson's hands trembled slightly as he wrapped them around his chipped coffee mug. He stood on the porch, eyeing the dry expanse of the Saguaro Valley, a land cracked by sun and years. At 63, his body had softened, but his gaze was still sharp, especially when it came to Lily, her hair catching sunlight like the wheat that used to grow here. She sat on the porch, brushing the dust from Max's fur, best dog in Arizona. She whispered, he never took his eyes off her, not once. Max had been Ryan's parting gift, a final act of love before the deployment. He didn't survive, and ever since then, Walter couldn't look at the dog without thinking of his son. The silence, the empty chair at dinner, the folded flag in the cabinet that Mutt eats like a grown man. He'd grumble, though no one noticed, how he'd top off Max's bowl. When he thought no one was looking, their house sat far off the main road. Their only neighbor was Eleanor Parker, half a mile down, with her beehives and jars of medicine. Her reputation sat somewhere between healer and witch, depending who you asked. 20 minutes till the bus baby girl. Walter called. She didn't answer, her cheek pressed into Max's neck, her arms around his chest. We're ready, Grandpa, she said. Her voice sounded older than 7. Grief had drawn lines in both their souls, the same lines he saw every time she looked up at him with her daddy's eyes. Dr. Sarah Mitchell ran the town's only vet clinic, where she treated livestock and pets with the same patient hands. She had a soft spot for Max ever since she learned he'd been trained with the police he treats. That girl, like she's breakable. She told Walter, like she's gold. Life in Saguaro Valley was hard, and getting harder. The land hadn't seen real rain in 3 years. People were packing up, leaving behind farms their grandparents built, but Max didn't seem to notice or care. His world was Lily, and wherever she went, his eyes followed her ears, tuned for anything that could hurt her. Mornings at the Thompson house had their rituals. Walter packed her lunch, peanut butter and jelly triangles, apples and juice, while she scrubbed her face. Max waited by the door, already on duty, already guarding science projects due Friday. Walter reminded her, dropping her ball cap over her sun-kissed hair. Eleanor said, you can interview her about the bees after school, he added. Lily gave a slow nod, pulling her backpack over her shoulders. I've got the questions ready, she said, always prepared, always planning. It was easy to forget she was just a kid. The bus came rolling through the dust. At exactly 7:30 a.m., Max walked her to the gate. Just like always, sat down and watched until the yellow box disappeared around the bend. Then, and only then, did he return to Walter. Every day, like passing the baton between protectors. She'll be back soon, boy, Walter muttered. Max didn't look away. Walter's hand twitched above the dog's head, but stopped short again. After all this time, he still hadn't figured out how to let that animal all the way in. The rest of the morning passed in hard silence. Fence repairs, broken pipes, overdue bills, always something. The pension helped, and Ryan's death benefits filled the gaps. But they were running thin. Walter didn't sleep much anymore, not with the threat of losing the farm hanging over him. This place had history. It was Ryan's childhood, Lily's sanctuary, and the last thing he could call home. Just after noon, Walter noticed something off. Max wasn't doing his usual rounds. Instead, he kept returning to the tool shed on the western fence line, pacing tight circles, nose, low, ears forward. Muscles taut. What's gotten into you? Walter muttered from the porch. The shed had been Ryan's. when he was a kid, later his workshop, and now just a place full of rust and memories. Walter had avoided it ever since the explosion took his boy. Overseas, by early afternoon, Max had turned restless, pacing, scratching at the dirt like something was buried there from the kitchen window. Walter watched the dog stand stone still before the shed door, staring as if waiting for something to come. Out, the feeling in Walter's gut told him something wasn't right. He knew that feeling. It had saved his life. More than once in uniform, he stepped outside the light, harsh, and unrelenting Max. He called the dog, turned slightly, but didn't move his tail, low body like a coiled spring. Then, in a flash, Max vanished around the back of the shed. The silence that followed felt thick and wronged. Then came the scream, not from any man or beast Walter had ever known a shriek of such raw pain. It stopped him cold. He ran without thinking, heart galloping, as he rounded the corner and froze. Max was buried alive beneath a living carpet of bees, their bodies crawling into his eyes. His ears down his throat, the dog thrashed in agony, his body jerking across the dirt in blind panic. Max, Walter bellowed, stepping forward before instinct yanked him back, survival screaming louder than grief. Swarm was enormous, clearly an entire hive, in full-on attack mode. Stepping any closer without proper gear would turn this tragedy into a double one. Walter's thoughts scrambled. Eleanor. She'd know exactly what to do. He spun toward the kitchen to grab the phone, when sudden motion from the house froze him. Lily was at the window of her bedroom, her face pressed hard against the glass. She must have come home on the early school bus, her eyes locked on the chaos outside, filled with horror as she watched Max writhing. Walter barely had time to react before she vanished from view. Lily, stay inside, he yelled, shifting direction to intercept her. Too late. The porch door banged open, and there she was, charging outside, her face tight with resolve. Lily, no, Walter barked, panic overtaking him. Get back in the house. But she was already flying across the lawn, backpack bouncing against her side. Walter's heart pounded in his chest as he remembered the EpiPen still sitting useless in the kitchen drawer. Lily's bee allergy was no small matter. One sting had almost ended her life 2 years back. Just one could kill her now. A swarm would be fatal in seconds. Lily, his voice cracked under the weight of terror. She paused only long enough to yell back. He's hurting Grandpa. We can't just let him. Dimax's cries hadn't stopped, but they were faint now, weak and disjointed, each sound breaking apart under the weight of venom. Walter felt trapped by the impossible do. I save the girl or the dog. His own body wouldn't move, frozen by love. For both, while Lily wasn't hesitating, she let the backpack fall, mid-run, beelining straight toward Max and the wall of bees. Her voice called out brave and clear despite the chaos. I'm coming. Max's hold on the image of her running straight into death's grip jolted Walter like a slap from God. Dear Lord, no, he whispered, snapping out of his daze. But Lily had already reached the garden hose coiled at the edge of the shed. Somehow she yanked the valve wide open and sprayed the water hard. At Max, the stream arched powerfully, drenching the dog and thinning the bee cloud around him. Walter stood stunned. His 7-year-old granddaughter, just like her father used to be, was battling to save her best friend, armed with nothing but grit and water. Stand back, Lily. He finally reached her, trying to take over. No. Grandpa, the water helps. She kept spraying, hands shaking but firm. We need dish soap. It keeps them down. Walter blinked at her words, caught off guard by how calm and informed she sounded. Then saw it, a bee landing on her bare arm and another near her neck, inside now. He snapped, scooping her up mid-spray, but Max's tears spilled down her cheeks as she struggled to stay. I'll help him, Walter said, deciding in that instant what needed doing. Bring the dish soap and my work gloves. Now go. Lily bolted inside her feet, thudding across the old floorboards. Walter turned back toward Max, the dog's once mighty body barely shifting. Now limp under the pulsing swarm, his mind raced through years of combat training, plan, adapt, act. But this was something else. This was family. Hang on, buddy, he muttered, voice catching in his throat, surprising even himself with how much he meant. It's seconds later, Lily returned, clutching a slippery bottle of blue dish soap and Walter's thick leather gloves. Her cheeks were flushed, fear and courage warring in her little face. Stay back, Walter said firmly, grabbing the supplies. 10 feet minimum. You got that? But I know what to do. 10 feet. Lily and Grace Thompson, or I'll carry you inside again myself. The warning in his voice hit home. Lily stepped back, keeping to the line he'd drawn, but not a foot more. Walter yanked on the gloves, uncapped the bottle, and squirted soap directly into the stream from the hose. The water turned frothy and white, cutting deep into the mass of buzzing bodies. The soap messes up their wings. Lily called, her voice rising above the chaos. "Keep going, Grandpa." He did, soaking Max thoroughly. The bees fell in clumps. Their wings gummed up, and useless others took off aimless, broken information. Few turned on Walter, stinging his shoulders and chest through his shirt, but he ignored them completely. His focus narrowed down to one thing: Max, and getting him out of this alive for the first time. Walter saw the dog not as a burden or a leftover from Ryan's life, but as someone worth saving, someone Lily loved with her whole heart. "Easy, boy," he murmured, stepping closer through the foam. "Just hang in there." As the bees thinned, he moved fast, peeling off his soaked shirt and wrapping it gently around Max's neck and torso, lifting the dog, whose heavy frame strained his aching back adrenaline. Pushing him forward, "Get the truck keys," he yelled over his shoulder, "and the red medkit under the sink." Lily didn't hesitate. She took off like a shot, doors flinging open behind her. As Walter laid Max on the kitchen floor for a better look, his stomach turned. The dog's face was a nightmare of swelling, his eyes completely shut, tongue lolling out of his mouth. Like dead weight, hundreds of tiny stingers riddled his snout and neck like black needles. "Is he gonna make it?" Lily's voice trembled, the strength gone from it. Replaced by raw worry, Walter wanted to tell her yes, but the truth pressed on him. "Too hard, not if we don't move now," he said, cradling the limp dog. "Again, heading for the door. We need to get those stingers out and get to Dr. Mitchelstadt." They loaded Max into the back of Walter's aging pickup, Lily scrambling up next to him despite Walter's objections. "I gotta start pulling stingers," she said, already leaning over him. "Every second counts." Walter couldn't argue. He jumped into the cab, slammed the gear into reverse, and tore down their gravel driveway. Dust clouds rising in the mirror behind him. Lily hunched over Max, her hands working fast, yanking out stingers like a medic under fire. The image broke. Something inside Walter, bringing back a memory like a hammer to the chest. Lily at just for screaming in agony from a single sting during a creekside picnic. Her tiny body swelling like a balloon, hives erupting all over her face as she gasped for breath. Ryan had run with her all the way back to the house, Walter on the line. With 911, his hands shaking, she almost died that day. Help came too slow now. Here she was willingly walking into danger for a dog she couldn't bear to lose, and Walter knew then with terrifying clarity they had to save him, because she already had. "Lily!" Walter shouted over the roar of the engine and the howling desert wind. "Check yourself for stings right now." She looked up just for a second, her hands still working frantically on Max. "I'm okay, Grandpa, I swear." But Walter wasn't buying it. He pressed the gas pedal down hard, the old truck groaning in protest as it bounced along the dusty road. Dr. Mitchell's clinic sat on the outskirts of town. Normally a 15-minute haul, Walter was planning to get there in 10. As they tore down the road, his mind yanked him backward. Ryan's voice, scratchy through a bad connection, on what turned out to be their final call. "Take care of Max for me, Dad. He'll look after Lily when I can't." At the time, Walter chalked it up to a soldier's last-minute sentiment. But now, those words felt like prophecy. They were barely 5 minutes out when Lily's voice cracked through the chaos. "Grandpa Maxie's not breathing right." Walter's chest tightened like a vice. He yanked the wheel and skidded to the shoulder, a cloud of grit swirling up around them. As he bolted from the cab, Max lay limp in the bed of the truck, his sides barely moving, breath shallow and wheezy. Lily's arms and shirt were speckled with bee stingers, dozens already removed, his throat's swelling shut. Walter muttered, panic hardening his voice. "Just like yours did." He lunged for the red supply box Lily had brought. Inside her spare EpiPen, the one that had saved her life before, "I don't know how this'll hit a dog," he said, locking eyes with her, his hands already moving. "Might kill him faster." "Doing nothing will," Lily replied, her trust unwavering. Walter popped the safety cap and jabbed the injector. Let out a strained, raspy wheeze. "He's fighting," Walter said. "Get back in. We're not done yet." As they sped forward again, Lily called from the bed of the truck, her voice thin but certain. "He saved me once, Grandpa. Did Daddy ever tell you?" Walter slowed slightly to hear her better. "Tell me what?" "Last summer, before Daddy left for base, we were at the creek. I slipped. The water was fast that day, pulled me under. Walter's hands clenched the wheel. Ryan had never said a word. Max dove in after me, bit down on my shirt, and dragged me back. Never seen anything like it. The truth hit Walter like a gut punch. All these months, he'd thought of Max as Ryan's dog, a memory that hurt too much to look straight at. He'd never realized Max had already saved the one thing Walter lived for. They pulled into the gravel lot of Dr. Mitchell's clinic on 2 wheels. Walter hammering the horn, Dr. Mitchell came rushing. Out, wiping her hands on a rag, her face shifting fast from curiosity to alarm. "Be attack," Walter barked, already lifting Max from the truck. "Thousands. I gave him an EpiPen about 3 minutes ago." "Get him inside exam room 1, she said briskly, turning to her assistant in the doorway. "Start prepping for diphenhydramine, and call Dr. Ramirez urgent care. We might have a pediatric anaphylaxis inbound." Walter froze. "Pediatric, no lilies." "Okay," she said, but when he turned, he saw it. The hives blooming across her neck, her cheeks puffing. One hand at her throat. "I didn't want to worry you," she said softly, barely upright. Not until Max was safe. Then she folded to her knees, and Walter's world tilted sideways. The next stretch blurred movement, shouting antiseptic smells thick in the air. The clinic, barely more than a ranch-style building, became a makeshift ER for both a child and a dog. Walter paced between rooms, his boots scuffing the linoleum. Face lined deep with fear he hadn't felt since combat. Dr. Mitchell appeared, her ponytail frayed, hands stained from Max's care. "He's stable, for now. I've pulled over 300 stingers. There's more, but he's holding." Walter nodded absently. "And Lily, Dr. Ramirez, is with her. The ambulance is on the way to Maricopa County." Her reactions, bad Walter. I won't lie to you, he'd survived firefights, seen friends die, but those words hit harder than bullets. "Can I see her?" Mitchell led him into the adjacent room. Lily lay on a metal table. Oxygen mask over her face, skin blotched and angry red dot. Dr. Ramirez hovered. "Adjusting monitors, her airways compromised," he said flatly. "The EpiPen helped, but she needs PiCuHeLs tied up with a crash on I-17. We're going by ground." Walter moved in close, took her tiny hand in his. Her fingers, still stained with Max's blood, squeezed his even now. She'd thought of Max first, just like Ryan. "What if I'm here, baby girl?" he whispered, voice cracking. "You're gonna be okay." Her eyes opened, just barely, blue irises almost hidden by swelling. "Max," she breathed, strained and muffled. "He's hanging on," Walter said, forcing down the swell in his throat. "Dr. Mitchell's got him." Her grip tightened. He understood. She was leaving Max in his care. "I got him," Walter promised. "Now you focus on healing." The wail of the ambulance shattered the silence. Cats scattered from the waiting area as paramedics rolled in. They worked fast. Walter climbed into the back beside her. "Sir, we'll need you to step." "He stays," Dr. Ramirez snapped. "He's all she's got." Her oxygen dipped. They gave her a second shot. Walter never let go of her hand. He traced soft circles with his thumb, just like he used to when thunder scared her as a toddler. He kept whispering, "Remember that rainbow last spring? You told her it was her dad waving from heaven." Walter's throat tightened, and the time you taught Max to carry her lunchbox to the curb, he looked like a little soldier proud of his mission, whether Lily could still hear. Through the haze of medication, Walter wasn't sure, but talking out loud helped him keep it together, helped him keep from cracking wide open at the hospital. Lily had been rushed straight into pediatric trauma. He was left behind in a fluorescent waiting room, clutching intake forms, and trying not to lose it, staring down at the clipboard. The words swam in his vision policy numbers, allergies, phone contacts. It all felt grotesquely irrelevant compared to what he'd just witnessed his cell. Buzzed Dr. Mitchell, calling from the clinic, wanting an update on Lily. Walter gave her what few details he had, and then asked about Max hanging on. She said, but just barely. The venom hit hard and fast. These next 24 hours are critical. The meds are helping, but it's the worst I've ever seen. Walter tried to wrap his head around it. What made the bees go after them like that? A pause on the Linnie Leonor Parker came by after hearing the news. She wants to examine the hive. Thinks something must have pushed them into full aggression. Walter nodded instinctively. Even though she couldn't see him, tell her to be cautious if they snapped once. they could snap again. When the call ended, he stared at his phone screen, a photo from years back. Ryan in uniform crouched beside Max, both squinting in the sun outside Baghdad. It was taken days before his last deployment. Walter hadn't looked at it in ages, the way Ryan and the dog mirrored each other, the same alert stance, the same silent. Promise. A gentle hand tapped his shoulder, pulling him back to the present, a woman in blue scrubs. Pediatric badge clipped to her collar, her face composed with that careful hospital calm. Mr. Thompson, I'm Dr. Keller, immunology team. Your granddaughter's stable, but very fragile. She's in a medically induced coma to keep her airway open and reduce swelling. Walter nodded slowly, soaking it all in behind his straight posture. Was a storm. When will she wake up? Maybe tomorrow, maybe longer. Depends on how she responds. Keller pulled a chair next to him and didn't look away. She took at least 15 stings, Mr. Thompson, and with her anaphylaxis history, it's a miracle she's still with us. She was trying to protect her dog. Walter murmured, a flicker of pride lighting his eyes. Keller gave a soft nod. She must love that dog fiercely, she does, Walter whispered. More than I ever realized. Next 72 hours became a loop hospital in Phoenix. Mitchell's clinic, an hour drive each way, worn-out seats, vending machine coffee, and a sleep schedule that shredded his nerves. Lily stayed in the coma, her vitals edging toward stability. The doctors were hopeful, but cautious, warning of possible organ stress or delayed brain response. Max was making his own slow comeback, his working dog genetics battling the poison. By the third morning, he managed to lift his head when Walter entered the kennel, his swollen features unreadable, but his tail bumped weakly against the floor. Hey there, tough guy, Walter said, kneeling, despite the creak in his joints. He reached into the cage for the first time, touched Max's neck where the swelling had gone down. Lily's fighting hard, you've got a match. Her Mitchell found him there an hour later, still sitting cross-legged beside the kennel, murmuring softly about nothing and everything, the Cardinals game rain, coming in memories of Ryan at 10 years old. He hasn't eaten for anyone, not a bite, but he might try for you. Walter blinked, surprised. He's never liked me much. Mitchell smiled. I think that's changing. She handed him a small bowl of recovery blend after some coaxing. Max took a few mouthfuls. From Walter's hand, like it was a peace treaty forged in silence. Be the fourth day, word had made its way through Saguaro Valley. Like wildfire, the waiting room filled with neighbors bringing baked ziti, and Hope farmers dropped off feed supplies. At the clinic, the local church hosted a candlelight vigil, and the school mailed a banner-sized card signed by every kid. Eleanor Parker showed up at dusk, her gray braid tucked into a baseball cap, her eyes serious. We need to talk, she said, no pleasantries. They sat across from each other in Mitchell's cramped office photos, spread out between them close-ups of the ground by Walter's shed, the wrecked hive, and a slick black mark in the dirt. At first I assumed someone disturbed the bees by accident, she said, tapping the print. But this was intentional, Walter. Someone poured something around the shed. Whatever it was, it turned those bees into missiles. Walter studied the photos, his military instincts kicking in instantly. Chemical. Nodded. I sent samples to a colleague at ASU, but I'm betting on pesticide, illegal type, highly dangerous for bees and humans, both. Who'd do that? And why here? Eleanor's jaw tightened. That's what I'm afraid of. Your land borders Westland. AG's expansion zone. They've been trying to buy you out for months. Shed said no 3 times already, each offered bigger than the last. The land came with water rights. Westland wanted that badly. You think they're trying to force me out? It felt like something out of a bad movie, but Walter couldn't ignore the possibility big agriculture played dirty now. She looked him dead in the eye. I think someone wanted to break you. Killing your bees is one thing, but everyone in this town knows. Lily's allergic. That wasn't collateral damage. That was targeted. Something smoldered deep in Walter's chest. Rage, not loud, but steady before he could speak. His phone rang again. Hospital update. He hung up and turned to her, their easing her off sedation, expecting her to wake by sunrise. Eleanor squeezed his wrist. That's good news, Walter. Go see her. I'll stay here with Max. Keep an eye on things. Walter gave a tired but grateful nod. The fight was far from over, but at least now he knew what he was up against. He hesitated, caught between obligation and instinct. You sure? She's gonna need her grandpa when she wakes up. Walter showed up at the hospital just before midnight, easing into the chair beside Lily's bed, like he'd done every night. The soft beeping from the machines was oddly comforting. Now each one a steady reminder that she was still fighting. Her face had nearly returned to normal. The puffiness had gone down. Though the dark bruises beneath her eyes betrayed the silent war, her body was still waging. As he settled in for yet another night of half-sleep and hard chairs, Walter found himself doing something he hadn't dared since the day Ryan died. He prayed. Not the formal prayers of his childhood, nor the desperate, pleading kind he'd whispered when they first broke the news about his son. No, these were quiet words, words of thanks, that Lily still had breath, that Max had survived, that, against all odds, he'd been given one more shot at keeping his family safe. He awoke to warm morning light slipping through the blinds, and that eerie feeling of being watched. Blinking, Walter looked uphand. There they were. Lily's blue eyes. Ryan's eyes locked on him. The breathing tube was gone. Her voice came out scratchy, barely more than a whisper. Grandpa? Walter leaned forward fast, wrapping his hand gently around hers. I'm right here, Mia. You're safe now. Tears welled in her eyes. Is Max okay? Of course. That'd be the first thing she'd ask. Walter smiled, his own throat tightening. He's hanging in there. Dr. Mitchell says he's in good hands. Lily's shoulders relaxed a bit, but her brow was still furrowed. He was trying to protect us, Max. He smelled something weird. By the shed, Walter's spine went rigid. What do you mean? Lily told him everything? Her voice stronger now. The day before it all happened, Max wouldn't stop barking near the shed. He blocked her path, wouldn't let her close. She thought he sensed danger. Suddenly, Walter saw it all in a new light. Max hadn't been acting strange. He'd been doing his job. Even after retirement, his instincts as a trained canine had kicked in. He was warning them. Rest now, mi amor, Walter whispered, kissing her forehead. We'll talk more later. Once she'd drifted back to sleep, he stepped into the hall and called Dr. Mitchell. She picked up on the first ring. Max just ate breakfast, she said before he could speak. He even tried to stand on his own. It's unreal, Walter. That's wonderful, he said, then hesitated. Doc, when Max was with Ryan, did he ever do narcotics work? Yes, Ryan told me Max had specialty training for chemical detection. Why? Walter relayed what Lily had just told him. The shed, the barking, the timing it, all lined up. I think Max was trying to alert us to something dangerous. Whatever was near that shed set the bees off, and Max got caught in it. Dr. Mitchell paused, then said gravely, that tracks. If some chemical was involved and it agitated the bees, someone trespassed Walter with something toxic. This wasn't random, he thanked her, heart pounding, and ended the call. If someone had brought danger onto his land, onto his family, then this wasn't over. Not yet. The next 2 days, Lily's hospital room turned into a makeshift investigation hub. Eleanor came by with printed photos. Sheriff Davis gathered statements. Even Dr. Mitchell contributed details from Max's recovery. Eleanor pointed to a lab result. This residue matches a banned pesticide neonicotinoid. It's lethal to bees and illegal to use. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. Sheriff Davis, an old friend of Walter's, looked uneasy. Trouble is, unless we catch someone in the act, all this, it's circumstantial. We can't prove who did it. Walter's stomach churned. Someone had nearly killed his granddaughter, and his dogand might walk away scot-free. It felt all too familiar, like the day he was told about Ryan's accident, like justice was just out of reach. On the day Lily was cleared for discharge, Walter walked into her room and stopped cold. Get well cards were taped to every wall. Balloons floated above the bed. A teddy bear nearly the size of Lily sat in the visitor's chair, but her eyes were fixed on the small TV above. Grandpa, look, she said, pointing there talking about Max. Sure enough, the local news was running a story on a hero dog's miraculous recovery from a bee attack. They showed footage of Saguaro Valley's vet clinic, then cut to community members praising Max. He's a hero now, Lily said, her voice brighter than it'd been in days. Walter watched with mixed feelings. The publicity might offer them some protection if they're wrong. Person had targeted their land, but it also meant their story was out there now, vulnerable, exposed. Then came the kicker from the anchor. In related news, state investigators have opened an inquiry into chemical contamination near properties bordering Westland Agricultural Holdings. Anonymous tips allege illegal pesticide use linked to aggressive land purchases. Walter's eyes met Lily's. Someone had listened. Someone had taken their word seriously. The discharge took the rest of the morning. Doctors gave them instructions, prescriptions, and a long list of appointments. By early afternoon, Walter was easing Lily into the passenger seat of his pickup, her bag and giant teddy bear packed in the back. "Can we go see Max first?" she asked. "Please, Grandpa." How could he say no to those blue eyes? Dr. Mitchell says he's up for visitors, he said, shifting into gear. "Let's go see our boy." The vet clinic was buzzing literally, but not with animals. The waiting room was packed with people, most of whom didn't have pets with them. Walter spotted familiar faces. The grocer, Lily's math teacher, even a few neighbors. "What's all this?" he asked the receptionist. She grinned. Word got out Lily was coming home. Folks wanted to say, "Welcome back," and thank Max. Dr. Mitchell stepped out, beaming when she saw them. "There's my brave girl," she said, kneeling. "Someone's been waiting for you." She led them to the recovery ward, where Max lay in the biggest kennel. His fur was patchy where they'd shaved to treat the wounds, and the swelling still clung to parts of his face. And the fourth line fed into his front leg. But when he saw Lily, that battered old dog transformed, Max pushed himself to his feet, tail swishing wildly. His ears perked. His whole body shook with effort and joy. His body trembled with restrained energy, a soft whimper rising from his throat as he leaned into the kennel gate, desperate to reach her. "Can I pet him?" Lily asked, already stepping forward. "Gently," Dr. Mitchell warned, her voice calm but firm. Lily reached through the metal bars, her fingers brushing his fur. Max responded with a tender lick, his deep brown eyes locked on hers, unblinking. In that instant, something passed between them unspoken, unmistakable. "I knew you'd come back," Lily whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "You're the bravest, smartest dog on this whole planet." Watching them, Walter felt a tightness in his chest that had nothing to do with his usual nerves. For the first time, he truly understood what Max meant to Lily. Not a pet, not even a protector. Max was the thread that tied her to Rihanna living promise that hadn't been broken. "When can he come home?" Lily asked, turning to Dr. Mitchell with wide, hopeful eyes. "If his blood work keeps improving tomorrow," the vet said. "He'll need some care, but he's out of the woods." Walter gave a slow nod, something solid settling in his gut. "We'll be ready." As they gathered their things to leave, Eleanor Parker stepped quietly into the room, her face drawn. "Walter, there's someone you need to talk to. State AG inspectors. They want to walk the property, especially the area near the shed." Walter glanced at Lily, still sitting beside Max, absorbed in stroking his ears. "Can it wait till morning? I'd like to get Lily home first." Eleanor shook her head. "They found chemical drums at Westland's plant, same kind used here. They need to verify everything now." It was clear evidence was stacking up, but it had to be. Secured properly, Walter knelt beside Lily, his voice soft. "Sweetheart, before we go home, we need to let some important people see where Max got hurt." Lily looked up, serious, to catch the bad guys. "Exactly," Walter said, struck by her clarity, "so they can't hurt anyone else." As they walked out of the clinic, the waiting room erupted into applause. Lily flushed, hiding her face in Walter's side. He gave a small wave, awkward but grateful. The inspectors followed them to the farm in their official trucks, making everything feel suddenly bigger than just them. Walking the fields beside Eleanor, Walter kept stealing glances at Lily, now sitting quietly on the porch steps. Her eyes were fixed on the old shed, the place where Max had almost lost his life. Something had shifted in their little family. The danger hadn't fully passed. Max still needed time to heal, and Lily's recovery would be slow. But in that moment, Walter felt something unexpected. Resolve. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was choosing to fight for Lily, for Max, and for the life they were rebuilding. That dog had nearly died for them. He deserved better. On the morning Max was supposed to come home, Walter was up before first light. He moved through the farmhouse with purpose, inspecting each room with new eyes. This place wasn't just a home anymore, was a line of defense. He checked the locks, the corners, the shadows. In Lily's room, he put up blackout curtains to block the brutal Arizona sun. Her doctors had warned she'd need plenty of quiet time to rest. No easy ask for a 17-year-old who'd once spent her days chasing lizards and dust devils across 5 acres. He paused outside, Ryan's old room, the one he hadn't entered. Since the funeral, it had become a storage space, a shrine too painful to visit. Now, he opened the door and stepped in, air thick with dust and memories. Boxers lined the walls, trophies, medals, photo albums. Swallowing hard, he got to work. By mid-morning, he'd made space in the corner for Max's new bed, placing water, and food bowls beneath the window, a basket of toys nearby. No more shoving him into the kitchen. When Lily wandered in, she didn't say anything. She just slipped her hand into his and smiled. "Max is gonna like this," she said softly. Walter nodded, throat tight. "Your daddy would have liked it too." Around noon, Dr. Mitchell's clinic truck pulled up, kicking up a trail of dust. Walter and Lily waited on the porch. The girl could barely keep still. When the vet lowered the German Shepherd from the back seat, Lily ran forward despite Walter's cautious shout. Max moved slow, his stride stiff, patches of fur shaved away, to reveal healing wounds. But the second he saw her, his ears perked, tail twitching. Dr. Mitchell unclipped the leash, and Max leaned his weight gently into Lily's chest. Walter blinked back tears. There was something deeper than loyalty between them. It was survival. They had gone through fire ants somehow, come out stronger. "He's still on meds twice a day," Dr. Mitchell said, handing over a paper bag of supplies. "The antihistamines will make him sleepy. Keep water nearby, his kidneys took a hit. From the venom." Walter nodded, mentally logging every word. "Anything else we should look out for?" Dr. Mitchell hesitated. "He may be more on edge. Protective. That's normal. He remembers what happened." Lily crouched beside Max, her hand resting on his shoulder. "He's still our Max," she said with quiet certainty. "Just sore." Dr. Mitchell smiled. "Exactly right. And you, young lady, how are you holding up?" "Better now," Lily replied, "now that Max is home." After the vet left, the house began to feel whole again. Max never let Lily out of his sight, even when fatigue slowed him, and Lily adjusted to sitting beside him with her books. When he couldn't play, Walter watched them with something close to awe. The dog he'd once resented had become the glue holding them together. Walter met him on the porch, keeping his voice low so Lily, still asleep inside, wouldn't hear. Inside, with Max curled at her feet, "There's been movement," Davis said, skipping any pleasantries. State investigators traced the same chemical compound to Westland's bulk depot. They've issued warrants for everything: bank logs, phone records, internal memos. Walter took that in, his brain snapping into an old rhythm. Military training parsing out what that meant, anyone named specifically. Davis gave a curt nod. James Harlow, Westland's acquisitions head for this region. The same guy who's been breathing down your neck to sell. A hot pulse of fury throbbed in Walter's temples, but he held it down. "So now what?" "He's in custody," Davis replied. "Worse, he's accusing you of staging the whole thing for sympathy or some kind of insurance fraud. But Harlow's got lawyers. Big ones. They've already pulled your financials." It felt like someone had slammed a shovel into his chest. "They accessed our records." "Judge signed off," Davis replied, voice low, "based on Harlow's countersuit." Walter gripped the porch railing so tightly his hands went pale. This was classic corporate warfare: confuse, smear, stall. "Make it too expensive to fight. What's our move?" he asked finally. Davis placed his hat back on. "Keep receipts, notes, everything. The state's on your side, but they need rock-solid evidence." The rest went unsaid, but the threat lingered like smoke. After Davis left, Walter checked the back room. Lily and Max were still out cold, safe for now. He sat at the kitchen table, elbows resting, face buried in his hands. He had sworn to Ryan he'd give Lily something steady, something safe, and now even the soil beneath them was a battleground. The phone rang, sharp and sudden, yanking him from his thoughts. Eleanor Parker's voice came through, brittle and breathless. Walter, Channel 12. Now, he did as told, keeping the volume just above a whisper. The TV showed a slick Westland PR rep in a tailored suit, standing confidently behind a podium. "Westland categorically denies any link to the regrettable event at the Thompson residence," he was saying. "In fact, early signs suggest the chemicals in question may have originated from the Thompson farm, possibly due to mishandling by Mr. Thompsona, former Vietnam vet with a history of PTSD." Walter blinked in disbelief. "Vietnam, he'd served in Desert Storm. And PTSD, never diagnosed, never even hinted at. "They're trying to make you look unstable," Eleanor murmured through the line. "Word at the pit stop is there saying, 'Lily got hurt because of your state of mind.'" The words felt like a direct shot to the heart. Lily was everything. The creak of the floor pulled him back. Lily stood in the doorway, Max beside her like a sentinel. Both wore the same worried look. "Are the mean people saying lies about you?" Walter forced a smile that didn't quite make it to his eyes. "Just adult nonsense, baby. Nothing you need to worry about." But Lily wasn't buying it. "Are they blaming you for what happened to him?" Walter shut off the TV, choosing his words carefully. "There's a company, sweetie, a big one. They want our farm, and they're scared of getting in trouble. So they're saying some things that aren't true." Lily nodded slowly, lips tight. "But we know the truth, and Max does too." At the sound of his name, Max pushed forward, pressing against Walter's leg like he understood every word. Walter's hand found the dog's fur on instinct. Where once that touch had been stiff, it now carried comfort. "That's right," he said, "and truth has a way of rising." But the next morning brought no peace. Dr. Mitchell called with a low, tired voice. "Max's blood work is back. Kidney values are off. I'd like to run more extensive panels. Maybe it's the venom, maybe the meds." Walter agreed without hesitation, but his gut twisted. The vet bills were stacking high. Add Lily's treatments, they were hanging by threads. The farm hadn't really turned a profit in years. Ryan's military death benefit and Walter's pension paid for basics, but one more emergency could sink them. As they were prepping to drive to the clinic, Max, who had been calmly dozing on the kitchen floor, suddenly shot to his feet, hackles up, ears sharp, a low growl in his chest. "Max," Lily asked, puzzled, more than scared. "What's wrong?" Buddy the shepherd moved to the window, body rigid. Walter stepped beside him. In the driveway, a sleek black SUV, windows tinted, two men in suits stepping out, holding clipboards. "Stay inside," Walter said, grabbing the door. "Keep Max with you. Don't come out till I say." He stepped out onto the porch, letting the screen door swing open behind him. Max's growl rumbled in the doorway. Oddly, it gave Walter comfort. Mr. Thompson, the older suit, called, handing out a business card. "David Mercer, Westland Agricultural. This is my associate, Thomas Riggs. We're here with an enhanced offer on your land." Walter didn't take the card, not selling. "Step off my property." Mercer offered a tight-lipped smile. "Given recent circumstances, we think resolving this swiftly would benefit all parties. Our revised offer would cover relocation, your granddaughter's medical costs, and ongoing vet care for the dog, plus enough for a trust fund." The mention of Lily's care something they shouldn't know sent an icy spike down Walter's spine. They were watching them, waiting, playing dirty. "I've already said no," Walter said, voice iron. "This land's not for sale, not to Westland, not to anyone." Riggs stepped forward now, tone clipped. "Mr. Thompson, you're in a vulnerable position. Financially strained, a sick child, a dying dog. And now, legal exposure if the state finds mishandling on your end." The veiled jab ignited a storm inside Walter, but his years of military restraint locked his voice in a calm register. "You threatening me on my own land, Mr. Riggs?" he asked coldly, just presenting facts. Riggs replied with practiced ease. "Westland prefers mutual understanding, but we're ready for alternatives." Before Walter could respond, a sudden ruckus erupted from inside Max's, barking, sharp and distressed. Then Lily's voice cutting through with fear. Walter turned instinctively, distracted for only a moment, and that was when he caught a flicker of movement. Riggs had palmed something from his coat pocket. A small metallic object aimed subtly toward the open doorway. Walter lunged on reflex, swiping the device out of Riggs' grip. It bounced and skidded across the wooden porch, an ultrasonic emitter, the kind used to agitate or repel trained dogs. Walter's eyes widened. "You were using that on him," he realized aloud, anger rising. "You intentionally set him off. He's still recovering. Damn it!" Mercer raised both hands, stepping back like he wanted to look harmless. "Just a safety measure, Mr. Thompson. Shepherds can snap after trauma." The screen door burst open. Lily charged out, cheeks flushed, fists clenched. "Stop hurting Max. He knows you're the bad guys." Behind her, Max stood in the doorway. No longer barking, now still, focused. Ears forward, stance rigid, eyes locked on the visitors, but not in confusion. Recognition. Walter felt the air shift. Max wasn't just triggered by sound, he knew something. "You've been here before," Walter said slowly, his brain catching up. "He knows you. You were here." The day of the attack, Riggs's expression twitched just for a beat before that corporate poker face snapped back into place. Preposterous. "We've never," but Max had started making a noise Walter had never heard from him before. Not a bark, not a growl. It was sharp, high-pitched, urgent. A trained signal. A detection. Alert. In that instant, Walter understood everything. Max hadn't been randomly snooping around the shed that day. He'd been tracking a scent, identifying a chemical, protecting his turf, doing the very job he was trained for. "Lily, go back inside," Walter said, voice low but firm. "Call Sheriff Davis. Tell him we've got a situation. He needs to come now." "This is outrageous," Mercer exploded, his tone defensive. "We came here in good faith to discuss business. Now we're being accused of—" "What? Sabotage? Trespassing?" Walter stepped in close, his physical presence deliberate. "Sheriff Davis will be very curious why my K9 is flagging on you, Mr. Riggs, and he'll be even more curious what kind of residue that fancy jacket of yours might be carrying." Riggs faltered, just slightly. "You have no proof? It's your word against ours." A new voice broke in, smooth and calm. Not exactly. They all turned. Eleanor Parker stood at the edge of the porch, phone in hand. "I've recorded everything," she said simply. The device, the dog's reaction. And the moment Riggs pulled it from his pocket. "That's probable cause for a chemical trace, isn't it, Walter?" Riggs and Mercer exchanged a glance, confidence gone, calculation replacing it. Then came the flash of red and blue. Sheriff Davis's cruiser rolled up the driveway. Max pressed into Walter's leg knot, cowering but anchoring him. For the first time since Ryan's death, Walter felt like maybe, just maybe, they weren't alone in this fight anymore. Sheriff Davis collected statements with the calm detachment of a man who'd seen a lot. He barely flinched when Eleanor played the video back. He bagged the device with care, then separated the Westland men into different cars for individual questioning. "We'll need documentation of Max's alert by a licensed canine handler," Davis said to Walter. "Ryan's old CO might be able to do it. He heads up the canine division in Tucson now." Walter nodded, his eyes drifting toward Lily. She knelt beside Max, whispering softly, rubbing behind his ears. "Think this'll hold up?" Walter asked. Davis sighed and pushed his hat back. "It's a start. If we find matching chemicals on Riggs' clothes and Westland's site, plus that video, we're in business." When the sheriff left, the stillness that followed felt heavy, not peaceful. Walter busied himself with routine checking the barn door, clearing tools, scanning the sky. But every step was mechanical. His thoughts spiraled, playing out what could come next. Eleanor stuck around for lunch. Her presence was grounding. Practical, something Walter hadn't realized he needed. "You and Lily should stay at my place for a bit," she said as she helped rinse dishes. "Just till this settles." Walter shook his head slowly. "We're not running, Eleanor. This is Ryan's land." "It's not running," she said gently. "It's regrouping. Besides, Tommy's visiting next week. He's Lily's age. They'll keep each other busy while we come up with a plan." It was tempting. Her house was better protected, warmer, and most importantly, not in the crosshairs. But still, Walter hesitated. Even a short retreat felt like surrender. That decision got made for him later that day. He was inspecting irrigation lines when Dr. Mitchell's truck came tearing down the road, dust flying. She didn't wait to park, just rolled the window down. "I need to start Max on fluids now," she said, urgency plain. "His kidney numbers are spiking." Walter's gut clenched. How bad? Bad enough. Likely the VEM, possibly the meds. He needs to be watched closely for at least 2 days. Walter nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. "I'll bring him in." He found Lily and Max in Ryan's old room. Lily sat cross-legged, reading aloud from a dog-eared picture book. Max was curled up beside her, ears twitching at her voice. "Sweetheart," Walter said, kneeling beside them, Dr. Mitchell's going to take Max for a few days. His kidneys aren't working quite right. He needs help. Lily's face crumpled. Is he gonna die? The bluntness of the question hit Walter like a hammer. She was too young to always jump to death, but the past year had made that her instinct. No. Baby, he whispered. He just needs medicine, the kind only Dr. Mitchell has. Max lifted his head then, looking between them as if he understood every word. Lily's tears fell soundlessly. Max licked her hand and stood, joints stiff, tail still. He limped toward the door. He knows, Lily said, wiping her face. He's being brave. For me, Walter blinked hard, just like you were, kiddo. Together. They helped Max into the back of the truck, Lee refusing to let him ride alone. ChatGPT Genoi in the back seat beside Max for the short ride to the clinic. Walter followed behind in his own battered pickup, already running numbers in his head. Between Lily's hospital bills, Max's constant treatments, and a harvest season that had come up short, their finances were circling the drain, exactly the weak point Westland was hoping to squeeze. At the clinic, Dr. Mitchell worked quickly. She hooked Max up to an IV, drew blood for new tests, and gave him something for the pain and nausea. These kidney numbers are dangerously high, she murmured to Walter, while Lily stayed close to Max, gently stroking his ears. If they keep climbing, we're talking possible renal failure. Walter took it in with his usual calm. What are his odds? Honestly, it's a coin toss, she replied, her tone softening. But he's strong, Walter. He's still fighting. The next 2 days. That's when we'll know. As the sun dipped low behind the mountains, Walter found himself faced with yet another painful moment. We have to let Max rest now, he told Lily, gently uncurling her fingers from the shepherd's fur. We'll be back at dawn. Can't I stay with him? She asked, her voice thin, her big blue eyes shining with unshed tears. He needs me, Grandpa. Walter crouched to meet her gaze. Dr. Mitchell needs room to work, he said carefully, though his heart ached the same. Way hers did. And you need a proper night's sleep. Remember? Doctor's orders. Lily's chin wobbled, but she nodded, brave as ever. So he doesn't think we left him forever. Walter knelt beside the kennel and looked into Max's dark eyes. We'll be back at sunrise, soldier. You hold the line. The dog's tail gave a weak, faithful thump. His eyes followed them both, steady and knowing. As they turned to go, Dr. Mitchell touched Walter's arm. I'll stay the night, she said. He won't be alone. And you can call any time. Walter thanked her, knowing she was adding to their bill, but unable to argue. Outside, under a sky peppered with stars, Lily was silent as they walked to the truck. Then Walter's phone rang. Sheriff Davis. We got preliminary lab results, he said, skipping pleasantries. Riggs had high concentrations of that banned pesticide on his clothes, mostly his boots. It's the same stuff we found by your shed. Walter let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. So you can press charges? We're pushing forward. But his lawyer's claiming it's cross-contamination, he says. Riggs works legally with pesticides on other farms. But here's what matters. The Environmental Agency is broadening their scope. Same chemical found at 3 more properties that said no to Westland. The pieces were falling into place. This wasn't just one bad apple. It's looking systemic, Davis said grimly. But that means Westland's going to come out swinging. They won't go down easy. Watch yourself, Walter. And with that, the line went dead. By the time they pulled into the farm, night had wrapped the valley in silence. Stars glittered above like chipped glass. Lily was half asleep on her feet, but still insisted on placing Max's favorite toy on her pillow so it stays warm for him, she murmured. After tucking her in, Walter stepped onto the porch. It should have been peaceful, but with Max gone, the silence felt hollow. The spot beside him where the shepherd usually lay only reminded him how deeply the dog had wedged himself into their lives. Then the phone rang again. Dr. Mitchell. Her voice was tight. Walter, he's getting worse. Temperature's up. Kidneys aren't improving. He's not stabilizing. A pause. I think you and Lily should come. The silence that followed was loud with meaning. Come now, before it's too late. Walter's fingers shook as he hung up. He just stood, there rooted, the weight of choice pressing down like stone. Wake Lily and bring her to say goodbye. Or let her sleep through this last moment of peace? He couldn't decide, not at first. And then for the first time since Ryan's funeral, Walter Thompson broke. He sat on the porch steps, head in his hands, and cried for his son, for Lily. For Max, the stubborn old canine, he'd never wanted and now couldn't imagine life without. A soft voice reached him from the doorway. "Grandpa, is it Max?" Lily stood barefoot, hair tousled, eyes wide with fear and an understanding far beyond her years. Walter wiped his face and straightened his spine. "Yes, sweetheart, we need to go to him now." The road into town was wrapped in shadow, the truck's headlights slicing through it like blades. Neither of them spoke. Lily clutched Max's stuffed squirrel tight to her chest, wrapped in her worn quilt with the star stitched across it. Her lips moved silently in the kind of prayers Walter had taught her after the funeral, back when they both still flinched at Ryan's name. The air was thick, hot and still, but Lily trembled anyway. "He's strong," Walter finally said as they turned down Main. "Max is a fighter." Lily nodded, her eyes never leaving the glowing windows of the clinic up ahead. Dr. Mitchell was already waiting at the door when they pulled in. Her face said it all. "Temperature's at 105, she said softly. "Kidneys are barely functioning. He's not reacting to meds the way we'd hoped." Walter felt Lily's small fingers slip into his. Her grip was tight. "Can we see him?" she asked, barely keeping her voice steady. Mitchell nodded. The clinic was quiet inside, dim and sterile. In the treatment room, Max lay on a steel table under a mess of tubes and wires. He looked so small, so far from the strong dog that had once hurled himself into a river to pull Lily out. His chest rose and fell in shallow pants. His eyes were nearly closed until they heard her voice. "Max," Lily whispered. She stepped forward slowly. "We're here, boy." His tail moved just barely, but enough to say he knew. Dr. Mitchell lifted Lily onto a stool near the table, cautioning her to avoid the wires. Lily gently placed the stuffed squirrel beside Max's head. Then she leaned close and whispered something only Max could hear. Walter stood a few feet back, his chest tight with grief. He couldn't look away from this loyal animal, this hero who'd done more for his family than Walter ever thought possible. "What are our options?" he asked quietly. Dr. Mitchell led him a few paces away. "He's in critical renal failure, Walter. The only shot he's got is at the teaching hospital in Phoenix. They've got the dialysis equipment and specialists." "Then that's where we go," Walter said instantly. But Mitchell didn't smile. "You need to be prepared. Transport alone could be too much stress. His system's already failing. You might not get him there alive." The estimate was staggering, possibly thousands of dollars, and no promises. The weight of it hit Walter like a punch to the gut. Between Lily's hospital stay and the farm barely hanging on, they had next to nothing left. Keeping Max alive meant hard choices, maybe losing the farm Ryan had poured his soul into. As if sensing Walter's turmoil, Dr. Mitchell gently placed a hand on his forearm. "There is another path," she said quietly. "We could ease his pain, let him go, peacefully, with those he loves around him." Even though she said it with kindness, the word euthanasia sent heat rushing to Walter's face. "No," he snapped, voice firm. "That's not happening. Ryan trusted us with him. We don't quit on family." Before the vet could respond, Lily spoke up, her voice urgent. "Grandpa, Max is trying to say something." Walter turned toward the table. Max had lifted his head, his eyes clear-focused, locked on Lily. A faint whine escaped him as he slowly placed one paw on her arm, right where the sting marks still showed beneath her sleeve. "See?" Lily breathed, eyes wide. "He keeps looking at my arm. And his medicine." She pointed toward the foredrip. "I think he's telling us something about the bees." Walter shot a look at Dr. Mitchell. Both adults hesitated, unsure whether to gently dismiss a child's hope or dig deeper, but something about Max's deliberate motion gave Walter pause. "The bees," he murmured. "Eleanor said something once about bee venom having healing uses." Dr. Mitchell's brow furrowed. "It's true epitherapy. Some folks swear by it for inflammation. But kidney failure. Call Eleanor," Lily exclaimed, suddenly animated. "She knows more about bees than anybody." Though it was well past bedtime, Walter dialed. The phone barely rang before Eleanor picked up, like she'd been waiting. "How's Max?" she asked straight away. Walter explained the dire situation and Lily's strange belief that Max was trying to communicate. "She thinks it's about the bee stings," he said. Eleanor was silent for a long beat before answering. "Walter, this might sound far, but bee venom can both damage and help, depending on how it hits the body." "That's what Dr. Mitchell said," Walter replied. "But listen," Eleanor cut in. "That pesticide Westlands formula, neonicotinoid dive, been digging into it since you found it on your property. Some new research shows that Melittina compound in bee venom might interact with certain toxins, maybe even fight them off." Walter turned on speakerphone so Dr. Mitchell could hear. "You think Max has pesticide poisoning?" "Not just a reaction to the stings. I'm saying maybe both," Eleanor answered. "What if the venom somehow countered the poison, like a weird kind of natural antidote?" Dr. Mitchell leaned in. "That's a long shot. We don't even know for sure he was exposed." "Actually," Walter said, "we do. Sheriff Davis called earlier lab found matching pesticide on Riggs' jacket. Max must have recognized it. From the shed, he probably got exposed while investigating." A new thought struck him. What if the bees attacked because they sensed the chemical on Max? What if they were reacting to that? Mitchell's skepticism was written all over her face, but there was a flicker of interest. "Even if that's true, what now? We can't just sting him again." "No," Eleanor agreed, "but I've got medical-grade venom extract. I use it for my arthritis, just pure melatonin diluted." "You're talking about giving a dying dog an experimental injection," Dr. Mitchell said, voice tight. "He's in renal failure. What other choice do we have?" Walter asked quietly. The vet didn't answer right away. Finally, she said medically, "Not many," Lily piped up. "Max tried to save us from those bad chemicals. The bees stung him because of the smell but maybe they helped him too, even if they didn't mean to." A silence followed her words, the kind that comes when simple truth cuts through doubt. Walter looked at Max again, his gaze locked on Lily's arm, then at the machines, all slowly blinking worse. He drew a breath. "Eleanor, bring the extract." He turned to Dr. Mitchell. "And you, what's the worst that happens if we do this?" "Worst," she replied flatly. "It speeds up the kidney failure, or anaphylaxis, or he dies on the table." She didn't have to say the rest. Max was already fading fast. They all knew it. Hope was the only thing left. Eleanor showed up within 20 minutes, hair pinned in haste, cooler in hand. Her clothes were wrinkled, but her hands steady as she explained the vial's contents to Dr. Mitchell. "This is off the books," the vet warned as she inspected the tiny bottle. "If this goes south, I'm liable." "I'll sign whatever release you need," Walter assured her. They debated dosage, made their best guess based on Max's size. Dr. Mitchell filled a syringe. With the diluted extract, Walter and Lily stood beside Max, hands resting on his side, bracing for whatever came next. This'll either help him, or she didn't finish, as she injected the solution into Max's IV. For a while, nothing changed. Max's breath stayed shallow. The monitor numbers didn't budge. Lily turned her face into Walter's coat, too scared to look. Then, barely noticeable, Max's chest rose a little smoother. One monitor gave a soft beep. His oxygen levels crept upward. His heart rate steadying, Dr. Mitchell said, voice rising with hope. She ran to draw fresh blood, his temperatures dropping too slightly. Walter didn't dare believe it, but Lily did. She leaned close to Max's ear and whispered, "Told you. You just needed be magic. Because you're part B now." The night dragged on as they stood watch. Hour by hour, the blood work showed tiny gains. By morning, Max could lift his head. Lily gave him a few ice chips, which he took gently. Eleanor dozed off in a lobby chair, but Walter stayed by the window, watching the dawn paint gold across the floor. The path here had been wild a bee attack that nearly killed them. Might have just saved Max. Around 8 a.m., Sheriff Davis walked in with 2 cups of gas station coffee and a face set with purpose. "The lab finished analyzing the pesticide," he said. "The chemical levels were nearly 10 times higher than the lethal threshold. Whoever dumped it, Walter, wasn't just trying to scare you off, they were turning your land into a toxic zone. That kind of contamination could have leached into your well, poisoned your crops. Killed off wildlife." Walter lowered his voice. Max sensed it. That's why he was going wild that morning. Davis gave a slow nod. That dog probably saved your lives. If that stuff had hit the water table, you and Lily wouldn't just be secued, be in the ICU, or worse. A cold, sick weight settled in Walter's stomach. This hadn't just been pressured to sell it, was attempted poisoning. We've got warrants out for both Riggs and Harlow, Davis went on. Environmental protection's already involved, and the FBI's public corruption unit, they're sniffing around for a racketeering case. If they find a pattern across other Wesleyan deals, Walter gave a tight, grim smile. So, it's finally ending. Davis kept his face flat. The immediate threat? Yeah, but Westland's got money and muscle. They won't stay down easy. Almost as if he understood, Max stirred beside the bed. Everyone froze. Dr. Mitchell hurried over, checking his vitals, blinking in surprise. His kidneys are still struggling, but the numbers are improving fast. Honestly, I've never seen recovery like this in an acute case. From across the room, Eleanor gave a small smile. There's still wisdom in the old ways. Nature heals when you let it. Lily beamed, running her fingers along Max's head. He's not just a dog, he's the bravest, smartest boy ever. For the first time in weeks, the fear in Walter's chest gave way to something else. Hope. The battle wasn't over. Westland still had attorneys. The farm still hung in the balance, but they'd made it through the worst of the storm. And Max, the dog Walter once saw as a painful relic, had turned out to be the heart that kept them. All together, what now? Lily asked softly, gazing up with complete faith in his eyes. Walter rested one hand on her small shoulder and the other on Max's head. Now, Mia, we heal, together. By the time autumn rolled over Saguaro Valley, the fields glowed with dusty gold and cinnamon tones. It had been 3 months since Max collapsed at Dr. Mitchell's office. 3 long, hard months of mending, forgiving, and starting over. Walter stood on the farmhouse porch, a hot mug between his palms as the cool air curled around him. Out in the eastern field, Lily's hair caught the sun like a flame, while Max trotted beside her, energy pulsing in every step. His recovery had been nothing short of miraculous. Just 2 weeks after the experimental treatment, his kidneys were working near normal. Every day since, he'd grown stronger. "Grandpa!" Lily shouted, waving. Max found another one. Smiling, Walter set his coffee down and stepped off the porch. The game had become a part of their daily life. Hidden canisters filled with harmless chemical markers buried around the property. Max would sniff them out, tail-wagging eyes. Alert, originally it was just rehab, but now it felt like training for something bigger. "Good boy," Walter said, kneeling and scratching Max behind the ears. The German Shepherd stood tall and proud, nudging a small vial between 2 stones. Lily's healing had followed a similar path, quick physically, but emotionally, she was even more resilient. Her nightmares were fading. In their place, curiosity. About bees, clean farming, and, much to Walter's surprise, law enforcement. "Sheriff Davis says Max might get recertified," Lily told him, brows drawn in serious thought. He could help find other poison like what made him sick. Walter gave a thoughtful nod. That's definitely worth thinking about. The court case after the bee incident had moved fast. Thomas Riggs flipped first, took a plea deal and spilled everything on Harlow and 3 more Westland execs. The company was now buried in federal charges. Expansion frozen by lawsuits and regulatory heat. Eleanor Parker, once just the bee lady down the road, had become a powerful witness. Her speech in front of the State Agriculture Board sparked a new Bill 1 aimed at protecting farmers from corporate abuse. Locals were calling it the Max Thompson Law, and the money pressure that nearly drove Walter off his land. That eased, too. Lily's classmates started a GoFundMe that covered Max's treatment. Newspapers picked up their story. Then came the environmental lawyers and support groups. Best of all, 5 other farmers came forward. Turns out, Westland had been running the same game elsewhere. Now there was a class action lawsuit building steam, for the first time in forever. Walter didn't dread opening the farm ledger. They were halfway back to the house when Walter's phone buzzed. Lab results? Back all clear. Celebration still on tonight. He showed Lily, who squealed and hugged Max. His kidneys were officially healed. The final hurdle crossed. "Can we make apple pie?" she asked, practically glowing. Max loves the smell of apples. Walter chuckled. I think we can arrange that. The dinner, originally meant for just them, had grown. Now it included Eleanor, Dr. Mitchell, Sheriff Davis, and a few neighbors who'd stood by them. What started as a quiet celebration had turned into something more, a chance to say, "We made it together that afternoon," as Walter helped Lily roll out dough in the kitchen. Max stirred from his nap near the door. His ears snapped forward. His tail beat against the floor, welcoming, not alarmed. "Someone's coming," Walter muttered, checking his watch. "Bit early for guests." A car crunched up the gravel drive. He went to the window and blinked. A dark government SUV was pulling alongside Eleanor's truck. "Stay with Max," he told Lily, then headed out. Eleanor had just climbed out of her vehicle, her face brighter than he'd ever seen it. A tall man in a crisp suit stood beside her, portfolio in hand. "Walter," she called, her voice brimming. "This is Jeffrey Harmon, with the State Environmental Protection Agency. He's got something to share you'll want to hear it firsthand." The man stepped forward, hand outstretched. "Mr. Thompson, it's an honor. What you did here, it's changing how we work, and it's not going unnoticed." Inside, Lily had already laid out lemonade and cookies, her quiet way of saying welcome. Home manners, a reflection of the way Ryan and his wife had raised her. Max settled beside her chair, body poised but calm. "Mr. Thompson," Harmon said, accepting the cold glass of lemonade, "the state has concluded its review of the environmental fallout caused by Westland's illegal pesticide operations. Alongside pending criminal proceedings, the company is being required to create a cleanup fund for properties like yours." He opened his folder and slid out a stack of paperwork. "Your land is listed for expedited restoration, soil testing, water monitoring, and direct compensation for losses." Took the documents and blinked at the numbers. The amount wouldn't just stabilize the farm's finances, it could finally fund the upgrades they'd pushed aside for decades. "There's more," Harmon added, now eyeing Max, who met his gaze with curious stillness. "Our department's launching a K9 initiative focused on agricultural chemical detection. Given Max's record and instincts, we'd like him and you to be part of it." Lily leaned in, her eyes wide. "What would that mean?" "Outreach," Harmon replied. "Local events, school programs, workshops for farmers. Max would represent our mission, teaching the community about safety and environmental care." Walter looked over at Max, whose tail gave a single solid thump, like a salute. "That's a lot of spotlight for a ranch dog," he said, though there was a smile hidden in his voice. "He's not just a ranch dog," Lily insisted, firm and clear. "He's a guardian." Eleanor chuckled, her hand brushing over Max's ears. "Then let the world see the guardian for who he is." "What?" "You both did. People need to hear it." As evening fell, their home buzzed with friends and neighbors. Chairs had been dragged in from barns and porches. Tomek, room for everyone at the long makeshift table. Dr. Mitchell brought a cake dog-friendly and decorated with a single candle to celebrate Max's second chance at life. Sheriff Davis stepped in with news from the State House. The Agricultural Defense Bill had officially passed, born from their battle. From the kitchen doorway, Walter stood back. Watching Lily laugh and glide between guests like she'd been doing it all her life, Max kept to her side, his presence quiet but steady. She told their story with a kind of grace, simple, strong, unafraid. Sometimes she stretched the facts the way kids do, but always landed on the truth that it had taken heart, grit, and an unexpected ally to bring them through the storm. Eleanor joined Walter, handing him a cold, sweet tea. "Ryan would have stood tall tonight," she said softly. Walter swallowed hard, his throat thick. "Lily, she amazes me." Eleanor looked at him, her voice firm but kind. "You too, Walter. Don't leave yourself out." As the last light dipped behind the hills, folks wandered to the porch, drawn by the breathtaking desert sky. Lily sat on the steps, her arm around Max's broad shoulders, murmuring things only he would understand. The shepherd never blinked, his eyes fixed on hers like the world depended on what she was saying. Walter took it in, the land, the girl, the dog, Ryan's spirit, Lily's future, Max's duty. He knew the road ahead held droughts, legal fights, and long nights, and Lily would still ache for the parents she lost. But somewhere, deep down, in that stretch of days when the hives went wild and Max howled in pain, something inside all of Them had shifted something that looked and felt a lot like hope. Funny, Walter murmured to no one in particular, how the least likely ones end up being our saving grace. Max turned, alert to his name, or maybe just his tone, eyes, meeting Walter's in the growing dark. Between them passed something unspoken but clear a recognition. A shared vow, a quiet bond forged in the fire of survival, a vow to guard what's sacred no matter the cost, a promise to hold the line when everything else falls apart. And in Walter Thompson's journey, we glimpse something that hits deep, a story, not just about survival, but renewal. In a world that often forgets its elders, Walter found a second calling in the middle of heartbreak. For anyone who's ever lost someone, faced bankruptcy, or questioned whether they still matter, Walter's hesitance will feel familiar. But Max's fierce loyalty and Lily's steady hope cracked through his doubt, showing us that courage doesn't fade, it evolves. Remember when neighbors had each other's backs? When people stood up against power and didn't flinch? When promises weren't just words but sacred trusts? Walter brings all that back, not in nostalgia, but in action. His path speaks for those who feel unseen, those who have become caretakers instead of fighters, and those who quietly endure. But more than that, it reminds us what's still true beneath the noise, that there's always time to step up, that old hands still carry strength, and that sometimes the most powerful things we do happen late in the game when we think we've already given all we have. In those final hours of light, when everything softens and glows, our legacy becomes clear.